Welcome to The Explainer. So, I want you to imagine trying to build a single unified nation out of an enormous archipelago. We're talking about a place that's home to thousands of islands and just incredibly diverse cultures, languages, and belief systems. It's an immense treasure, right? But it's also a logistical and social puzzle. To keep a society like that from completely fragmenting, you need a foundation that is entirely unique. You need a highly specialized kind of glue. And for Indonesia, that glue is called Pancasila.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture the year 1945. Indonesia is standing right on the precipice of independence after years of Dutch colonial rule and Japanese occupation. The stakes literally could not be higher. The impossible challenge facing the Founding Fathers was exactly this. How do you weave together a nation with such a complex tapestry of identities without it just tearing itself apart at the seams? If they failed to find an answer, the very real threat was immediate social conflict and division.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the unification challenge, move into the birth of Pancasila, break down the 5 pillars, decode the first pillar, and finally, look at the glue of diversity.
All right, Section 1, the Unification Challenge, a multicultural archipelago.
To really understand this identity, we have to look at the reality of the archipelago's demographics back in 1945. The sheer scale of Indonesia's diversity is, well, staggering. We are talking about vast, deep-rooted differences in ethnicity, religion, race, language, local customs, you name it. Now, on one hand, this diversity is an absolute national treasure. It's a cultural richness that very few places on Earth actually possess. But the founders were acutely aware of the flip side. Without careful management and a shared vision, those differences in identity hold the serious potential to spark social conflict. They knew that a newly independent nation, lacking a cohesive core, would easily fracture right along these fault lines.
Moving along to Section 2, the birth of Pancasila, forging an identity.
The monumental task of solving this puzzle was handed to a special body known as the BPUPK, which is the Investigating Committee for Preparatory Work for Independence. And this all happened at a totally lightning pace. The BPUPK is formed in late April 1945. After some really intense debates among leaders from diverse backgrounds, Insinyur Sukarno, who would of course become Indonesia's first president, delivers a monumental speech on June 1st. In this speech, titled The Birth of Pancasila, he introduces 5 foundational principles to unite the country. After some refinement through the Jakarta Charter in June, it gets officially adopted into the Constitution on August 18, 1945. And as a quick aside, decades later, to ensure this foundation is never taken for granted, President Joko Widodo officially decreed June 1st as a national holiday in 2016.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 5 pillars, anatomy of an ideology. So what exactly are the rules that govern the nation? First up, let's look at the name itself. Pancasila is derived from Sanskrit. Pancha means 5, and sila means principle or foundation. But what you really need to take away from this is that Pancasila isn't just a symbol or some static historical document sitting in a museum. It was designed from day one to be a comprehensive, living, breathing, philosophical system that serves as the foundation for absolutely all aspects of national and state life in Indonesia. And this brilliantly illustrates those core pillars, as they are standardly understood today. First, belief in the one and only God, which really anchors the nation's morality and spirituality. Second, a just and civilized humanity, demanding respect for human dignity and rights. Third, the unity of Indonesia, prioritizing the nation above any regional divisions. Fourth, a democracy guided by wisdom and deliberation, meaning decisions should actually be made through consensus and careful consultation, rather than just simple majority rule. And fifth, social justice for all Indonesians, striving for absolute fairness and equality in economics and society.
Now, Section 4, decoding the first pillar. This is a bit of a linguistic rabbit hole.
We're going to zoom in and look closely at the language here because it holds a secret that literally saved the nation. There is a massive lost in translation effect happening. If you look at standard English translations of that very first pillar, it usually reads belief in the Almighty God or belief in the one and only God. Now, this phrasing heavily implies a strict exclusive monotheistic belief. However, an academic exegesis of the original Indonesian text reveals something much, much deeper. A more accurate translation of the intent is the High One Divine. Let me explain why this distinction is just incredibly important.
It all comes down to the grammar of the Indonesian language. The original word used in the first pillar is ketuhanan. See, it combines the root word Tuhan, which means God, with the linguistic affixes ke and an. In Indonesian, when you apply these affixes to a noun, it actually changes the meaning. It never refers to a person or a specific entity. Instead, it creates a noun meaning the divine or divinity. So, ketuhanan acts as a broad, inclusive term for spirituality. It acknowledges that the nation is built on religious and moral values without exclusively enforcing the specific concept of God from any single religion. So, the crucial takeaway here? This wasn't just some grammar choice. It was an absolute masterstroke of diplomacy. As philosophy professor Franz Magnus Suseno points out, this phrasing was the fundamental national compromise. Back in 1945, there was intense debate between those who wanted an Islamic state, representing the massive Muslim majority, and those pushing for a secular nation-state. By choosing Ketuhanan, they honored the deep religiosity of the Indonesian people while ensuring the state protected all religions without discrimination. It literally prevented the nation from fracturing right at its birth.
All right, Section 5, the glue of diversity, Pancasila in action.
We've seen the brilliant linguistic theory, but how does this actively work in society today? To really anchor this philosophy in reality, look no further than Indonesia's cultural parks. These are physical spaces deliberately designed and funded by the government to showcase the arts, dances, and traditions from various regions. But they aren't just tourist attractions. They are concrete, living manifestations of Pancasila education. They're spaces where that second pillar, just and civilized humanity, is practiced daily through cross-cultural expression and interaction.
When you look at what actually goes on in these cultural parks, the activities map directly back to the specific values of Pancasila. They promote unity and diversity by creating a public space where all ethnicities and religions can interact seamlessly. And, this constant exposure develops deep tolerance. It prioritizes national interests by fostering a shared pride in the country's collective heritage. And by ensuring these spaces are totally free from discrimination, they actively respect human rights. Pancasila functions here not just as some high-level theory, but as a practical tool for conflict resolution and building mutual respect.
So why does this matter so much right now? Well, as researcher A.L. Hakim sharply notes, without unity, the state and nation will easily collapse in a short time. In our modern era, faced with the uncontrolled flow of information, digital polarization, and the constant threats of radicalism and extremism, Pancasila remains a highly relevant active shield. It's a vital educational instrument that reminds citizens to put unity way above personal or group interests.
We've seen how Indonesia tackled this ultimate unification challenge through a really carefully crafted, inclusive system. It kind of makes you wonder about the divisions we face in our own lives and societies, doesn't it? How could your own diverse communities benefit from a unifying, structured philosophy like Pancasila? Think about how a shared commitment to tolerance, humanity, and social justice might act as the glue for your world. Thanks so much for joining me on this one. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.